You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. This week's guests include a medical doctor who is a feminist, a peace activist, and a policy wonk, and who refuses to abandon her country. Her country is Syria. We'll also talk with the woman who created 9 to 5, both the labor movement and the movie. Talk with her about how to regrow the middle class. And last, climate change isn't coming. It's here. An expert activist introduces us to the concept of environmental justice. All that and more. But first, we need to look inside the headlines. The headlines tell us we're at war again. A war that will probably last for years. And the heart-sickening reality of that is slow to seep in. Years ago, in the anthology Sisterhood is Global, Hilkka Pietilä, the Finnish contributor, wrote, "A patriarchal state is either recovering from war, preparing for war, or at war." It was an apt description, I think. The interesting thing about our bombing Syria, or bombing ISIL in Syria, is the extraordinary coalition of Arab states we seem to have convinced to join us. All the way from liberal King Abdullah of Jordan, who grew up watching Star Trek, to the royal family of Saudi Arabia. My favorite people, as you know if you're a regular listener, unrivaled in their tyranny, their corruption, their control. Why is ISIL alone capable of uniting such an interesting spectrum of Arab states together with the United States in league with monarchs? You could say it's because the zeal of ISIL was alarming everybody. That has been said. Another theory is the barbarity of the, not just propaganda, but reality in the videos of the beheadings. Another might say it's the radical quality of ISIL. I don't think it's any of those that has the capacity to unite so many Arab states together with the United States. I think it's simpler. I think it's the speed of their success. The swath that they cut across 2 countries, close to 3, not observing borders, which everyone seems quite horrified by, and which actually I think is not such a bad thing. But if they're trying to establish a caliphate, just wait. There's always time to save us, because who then, should they win, would be the caliph. And think of the bloodshed over that. They're the same demographic, young men 18 to 25, as the young men involved in the Arab Spring, with such a different aim, goal, tactics. What is that difference? The difference is the presence of women. Women were in the squares of freedom of the Arab Spring. Women are only useful as victims, pieces of meat, loot to ISIL. So people have been in the streets again, always not a bad thing. People have been in the streets protesting the bombing. People have been in the streets protesting the denial of climate change, the largest demonstration ever to take place, they say, on environment just a few days ago in New York City, backed up by support demonstrations in other cities and around the world. And the Russians have been demonstrating in public against the behavior of their own government in Ukraine. That's a very courageous thing to do in today's Russia, to go up against Putin's policies. But they've done it. And just as I was on my way home thinking to make notes for this commentary about the different demonstrations, I passed yet another one. Just about 15 or 20 people, this one, walking down the middle of the road, obstructing traffic with a couple of jaded, exhausted cops looking on. And they were chanting, "Hell no, hell no, puppy mills have got to go." And I admit to you that I thought at first, oh, good God, with everything that is going on in the world, you can't find anything to protest except puppy mills and pet stores. But as I looked at them, and they all had dogs on leashes, and they all had signs of sad-looking puppies, I thought, well, whatever your passion, but at least take a stand. And if you're going to start with puppy mills, hopefully you won't let it end there. There's a lot else to take on. Our first guest returns to us from Syria. Mouna Ghanem is a medical doctor who lives in Syria and has been a senior gender consultant with extensive experience all throughout the Arab region. She worked for more than 10 years as a representative for the United Nations Population Fund in Syria. She's chaired the Syrian Women's Organization, the Syrian Commission for Family Affairs. She's worked with the United Nations Fund for Women, and she is the founder of the Syrian Women's Forum for Peace. Mouna Ghanem. Welcome, Mouna, to Women's Media Center Live. It's good to have you back.
Thank you very much.
Well, the last time you were here, we talked about how bad the situation was in Syria and in the region. And if anything, God help us, now it's worse. Take it away.
Okay, thank you very much. Unfortunately, the situation is now worse than last year.
Yeah.
And I would say that ISIS is an indicator for the failure of the international community in finding a peaceful solution for the Syrian war. I mean, ISIS is not only a temporary event. It's something very strategic, and they work with the strategy to invade and to expand and to spread their ideology across the border. Mm-hmm. They don't believe in border, and this is very dangerous. And we should not look at ISIS as a permanent, event. It's something very dangerous. And I think if the world doesn't cooperate to put a limitation or to end this episode, I mean, everybody will be in danger. Mm-hmm. And to do that is not. I wouldn't say that it's only military action, as you mentioned, that maybe U.S. will bomb Syria or bomb Iraq. This will only make situation worse. Mm-hmm. What we really need to solve the reasons behind such issue. Like, we need to help the Syrian people to find third solution, because the Syrians are stuck between ISIS now and between the regime. Yeah. And there is an incubating environment for ISIS in the northeast area, because these people are very much, the Syrian people are very much frustrated from the failure of the international community, and they are frustrated from the violence of the regime. And the world failed to present for them a third option for better life. I mean, the Syrians really wanted democratic life, wanted better life, wanted development, wanted to get rid of poverty. And when they went out, the regime faced them with extreme violence, and the world failed to find a solution for them. This is why they are backing up ISIS. And I think we have to really treat these reasons before we go to bomb. I mean, if you kill, it's always, I say it for the regime. They say we kill 10. I say if you kill 10, they will send you 100, because there is now an immigration towards Syria coming from everywhere.
Yes.
And as I mentioned, the dangerous issue in this, they don't believe in border, and I think this is a threat for the whole world.
Yeah.
And for the issue of the human rights violation of women in the ISIS in the controlled area, I mean, I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
I mean, what they are doing is beyond imagination. And this is it's not middle age. It's something done in a very strategic way. And I think will change the composition of the population in Syria, because raping women or having forced marriage with women and having children from the Syrian women will really have a serious consequences on Syria.
My God. You mean they're doing, in effect, ethnic cleansing? They're forced impregnations?
I don't know what is their strategy yet, but I am very much worried because they forced women to marry them.
Yeah.
Of course, when you marry, you will have children.
Yeah.
And then you will have a new generation of the children whose their father are aces.
Oh my God.
I mean, it's beyond the human rights violation. It's something very, very serious.
And that's getting almost no coverage.
I mean, because we cover. I mean, because everybody in the world sees ACEs as a temporary event which will be eliminated by strike.
Yeah.
No,
it won't.
These people really know what they do.
Where are they? Where does ISIS come from, Mouna? I mean, we hear that some of them are people who had been in the government army who deserted. We hear that others are disaffected youth. We hear that, the media here is filled with rife and rumor. Obviously, they're mostly men. They're between ages 18 and 24, and they are burning with the hard, fanatic zeal. But what did they form out of? Where did they come from? And the idea of the caliphate?
They come from every country. They come from Europe. They're leaders, the leaders.
Yeah.
The Syrians are backing them up. They are not the leaders.
Uh-huh.
This is what I'm saying about incubating environment. The Syrians are welcoming them because they find them the only solution. Or they don't fight them because they think that they are the only solution. Or they cannot fight them because they are scared of them.
Right.
They come from everywhere.
But the world is in that stage of, oh my God, the Middle East again, turn the page. And I keep trying to think I know that it would be women, but women have so little power. What could turn the situation around? In one sense, until Palestine-Israel is solved, nothing can really move forward. In another sense, the whole region is so inflamed now, and depressed after the hope of the Arab Spring, that it seems so tragic. And I hear such despair coming out of my Arab sisters in every country. So now that Syria has been at war for months and months now, but now that it seems the center of crisis is moving there, what should we be doing instead? And
we should lobby. We should put a lot of pressure on the decision makers across the world to work for peace.
Try to be more specific in the guidance, because it seems that a lot of the people that the United States and Europe has chosen as various surrogate leaders have turned out to be hideously corrupt, and no good whatsoever, whether it's in Afghanistan or in Iraq or. So who are the alternates in emerging in Syria? Are there any who would be backable, who would be working for genuine peace and civil society?
Well, I cannot identify any, but if the chance open, I think many people will be capable of doing that. Now the Syrian people are under pressure. They cannot move because of the security reasons. They cannot do whatever because of the resources. Most of the resources are limited to the people who are outside the country.
Yeah.
Nobody pay attention to the civil society inside the country. My group, we are trying to build the civil society through other organizations, Juzur, which is for building the civil society in Syria, because we believe building civil society is the only way for democracy. So we give people training, we give them consultation, we give them capacity building, so that they can be the seats of the civil society in Syria.
Yes.
On the other way, we as a woman, we will launch next month an initiative for political dialogue among women from different political and religious backgrounds.
Oh.
So we will start this by ourselves without any support from international community or UN or anything, because we really think that we cannot wait.
Oh, that's
and
a
we will do this in Damascus, and maybe next year I can brief you on the results. I hope that will help, because we want to say what kind of country we want to live in. And I think this is very important, regardless of the political position or the background.
Yes, 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 yes. Mouna, is there a website that if people want to support that effort of women, they can, or can they do it through Donor Direct Action?
Yeah, I mean, they can do it through Donor Direct Action, but we have our website, which is SyrianWomenForumForPeace.com.
Syrian Women's Forum for Peace.com.
It's one word. It's
okay.
word.com. But the support, we receive support through Donor Direct Action.
Yes, and so you would go to Donor Direct Action, listener, Donor Direct Action, and then look for Mona's name, Mouna Ghanem, or for Syrian Women's, say it again,
Syrian Women Forum for Peace.
Syrian Women's Forum for Peace. Oh, we have to go, but my heart goes out to you. I know you're a medical doctor, so seeing all this suffering must be a particular hell for you.
You know what is bothering me more?
What?
That the reproductive health is totally ignored in the situation of the women displaced inside Syria. I don't know about the women outside Syria because I don't work outside Syria, but after what happened in Lebanon, we will have a campaign next week. It's called Voice of a Woman Refugee, where we call for solidarity and support for the Syrian woman refugee across the world.
Oh, well, we will be part of that very gladly. Thank you for everything you're doing. Be safe. Be safe when you go back. Please take care of yourself. And we'll talk to you soon, I hope.
Thank you.
We need to take a short break here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and when we return in just a moment, I'll be speaking with Karen Nussbaum about what it will take to rebuild the middle class. And she has an answer, something that you and I, in fact, can do.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back. Karen Nussbaum has been on the program before. She's a welcome returnee. She's the executive director of Working America, a community affiliate of the AFL-CIO. She co-founded the organization in 2003, and she'll talk about it and how important it is to what there is of a transformed union movement and how it affects you and me. Welcome back to Women's Media Center Live, Karen. Good to have you back.
I'm delighted to be here with you, Robin.
Well, you are always our go-to person on unions, the good, the bad, the hopeful, the whatever happened to, and the how can they especially benefit women. And let me just start with the inequities and whatever happened to the middle class. Are we really losing it? It feels like we are. And how do unions fit into that? How can they change that?
Well, Robin, I started organizing women workers 40 years ago. And at the time, we wanted equality. And then, unfortunately, what happened was we got it by getting men's jobs to look like women's jobs rather than women's jobs to have security and benefits and pensions and, control over your work schedule. And so what we've seen is a really concentrated effort on the part of employers, but really with the power of the big corporations behind them driving this, to remake work in the image of women and African American workers. So that now men's jobs look more like ours were to start with. So this is something that the corporate elite announced as a strategy in the early 1970s, and the globalization of work and new technology really gave them the tools to make it happen. And so it's a big enemy, really, that we're facing. And I think that unions are essential to turning that around.
How did they rationalize it? What was their justification? It's always interesting to me how the language gets corrupted.
Well, there's a wonderful little op-ed in Business Week in 1974 that says it'll be a bitter pill for Americans to swallow, the idea that big business and banks, that Americans will have to do with less so that big business and banks can have more.
That was
totally
said right out.
There. Yeah, it was printed in Business Week, and the justification was, oh, well, we've got global competitors. And so there had been before then a real debate. Will the U.S. economy choose to compete with the high road competitors like Japan or Northern Europe, Scandinavia, Germany, or, and this is the decision they made, to compete with the low road competitors out there, to look more and more like China and Mexico and Southeast Asia. So that's who American workers now compete with, despite the fact that American workers are at the top end of productivity, that we continue to deliver more in profits to American employers than anywhere on the globe, but that we no longer benefit from that. So corporate profits skyrocketing, pay for most workers stagnant or declining. And you just look especially at women workers, and you can see over and over, no paid sick time, no vacations, no pensions, no benefits. When I started working, everybody got something along those lines.
Yeah. It's savage. I mean, and what's frightening is everybody knows it. It's recognized. Everybody talks about we really can't sustain this kind of polarized inequality in this country. This is a first. What happens when we lose the middle class? The middle class is the glue, and then it just sits there. And meanwhile, the Koch brothers and the big corporations continue to grow. The banks. Nobody ever went to jail for what the banks did.
Right.
Right. How can unions turn this around?
Well, unions are the reason that jobs become middle-class jobs. It wasn't like public sector jobs were well paid or considered good jobs until unions gave workers the ability to bargain for decent pay and benefits, or for any number of jobs. The auto workers, steel workers, all kinds of factory workers, those were the worst jobs, Robin.
Yeah.
And they only got good when workers said, you know what, you are profiting like mad, and we need to redistribute some of that profit. And they succeeded. The whole idea of a union is just that workers join together and use their collective power to bargain with their employer. Right. Well, it works. But starting in the mid-'70s, when we started organizing women workers who were working in offices, the part of the strategy on the part of the big corporations was take out the unions.
Yeah.
And they did that systematically. But unions are coming back in new forms now. We are continuing to organize in the strongest way, which is collective bargaining in the workplace. But for the last 10 years, I've been working with Working America, which is a new kind of union that looks a lot like 9 to 5 looked in the early days. It's an open door. Anyone can join Working America. Anyone can benefit from the information and the collective power that we bring to communities. All you need to do is say, yeah, I agree with you. Sign up here. And so we are once again going to where workers are, building the forms of organization that workers can join easily and then express power. And it's working, Robin. We've got more than 3 million members, and we're seeing real changes.
Wow.
Yeah, you bet. More than about 55% of our members are women. Most of our activists are women. We are out there fighting for paid sick days, for an increase in the minimum wage, for better schools, for health care. These are all issues that are right at the top for women workers. And we're winning by organizing in the community first and now moving that power into the workplace.
Well, the California law that recently passed was a step forward in terms of, say, for example, restaurant workers, but it didn't include home care workers. And so there's always another, another need to push it further, particularly in those service jobs that are labor intensive and low wage, and women.
That's true, and we're seeing exciting organizing going on among home care workers, among domestic workers. We're also beginning to see women who are in jobs that they always thought were going to be good middle-class jobs, which now look like the rest of those jobs, like adjunct professors. You could go to graduate school, hoping to become a college professor and become a college professor, but you can't make a living wage anymore because a majority of the jobs in universities and colleges these days are part-time. So you're making $3,000 for a course, and you have to cobble together your courses at 3 or 4 different universities, and you get no health insurance. So we're beginning to see even professors and then look like domestic workers.
That's so interesting because it comes home to roost. I mean, it's sort of the corporatization of academia.
You're exactly right, and so it's not any longer a problem for someone else that you can feel sorry for. This is an issue that's affecting all of us.
Well, tell the website of Working America so that people can find out more.
Great. Come to workingamerica.org. It couldn't be easier. Join Working America. You can do it with a click. That couldn't be easier. And then begin to find ways that you can get involved that meet your time and interests.
This is really important. Thank you, Karen, for everything you've done for years and that you keep doing so wonderfully and reliably and creatively and refreshingly each time.
Well, back at you, Robin. Thank you.
Time to stop over in the surrealism corner. There is a website that is quite eclectic and has all sorts of strange things on it, pieces and bitlets of information, some of them utterly irrelevant, some of them quite wonderful, some of them tacky. The website itself is simply http:// and then spelled out 22words.com. 22words.com. So if you go to that website and then once you're on it, in the search box, put in the words performing Shakespeare. Then a wonderful thing will happen in your life. Well, if you're as crazy as I am. There is this father and son team, a linguist, David Crystal, and his adult son, who's an actor, Ben Crystal. And together they have, how to put it, they are performing sections of Shakespeare's plays in the original English that would have been heard by audiences in Shakespeare's day. Keeping in mind that Shakespeare himself was a Warwickshire man from South Warwickshire, the accent is not what you would consider a modern-day King's English accent, but suddenly many of the rhymes come alive, and many of the puns come alive. And once you listen to it for a while, the ear becomes accustomed. Anyway, it's a fun thing and a wonderful thing for those of us who are Shakespeare buffs, and it's a good website. So it's 22words.com, and then you look for performing Shakespeare in the original accent or just even performing Shakespeare. Have fun. It's time for another short break here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and when I come back, we'll look at tornadoes, earthquakes, droughts, floods, severe weather, they're calling it now. And what's the concept of environmental justice? Be back in just a moment.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
And we're back again. We're here with Professor Carmen Gonzalez, who teaches environmental law, international environmental law, and international trade law, who has published widely in the areas of international environment law and justice and trade and the environment, and who was a Fulbright scholar, a visiting fellow, sick at Cambridge University in UK, a visiting professor in China. It's an extraordinary career. She was chair of the environmental law section of the Association of American Law Schools, and she's with us today to talk about, yes, climate change. Welcome back to the program, Carmen.
Thank you.
You were with us before, of course, on the publication of your really fantastic book, Presumed Incompetent, The Intersections of Race and Class for Women in Academia, which blew the whistle and blew heads off and blew some air into the room in terms of the status of women who are women of color in academia. And I gather that before we get onto the subject I want to tap your brain about, I gather that your book gave birth to a conference and more organizing, yes?
Yes, we had a symposium on the book. That was a day-long symposium with 40 different speakers, and we've just published 2 sets of papers responding to Presumed Incompetent and taking the conversation to the next level, and they are superb.
Oh, brava. See, I really believe when one woman, dares start the dialogue, speak the truth, say the unnameable, it creates a force majeure that can't be stopped. So I congratulate you.
Thank you.
But today I want to ask you about your specific field, which is environmental law and international environmental law and the environment. And I'm just a layperson, but I am going quietly crazy here because it's like, what will it take for people to wake up and understand that it's not just happenstance, that even just in this country, there are flash floods, there are tornadoes that aren't supposed to be where they're happening, the same with major earthquakes, the same with drought, severe winters, what is now called simply severe weather, and it's beginning to be a part of almost every weather broadcast. What will it take for them to finally wake up and understand this problem and their part in it, our part in it?
Well, as you've said, this is a planetary emergency at this point.
Yes.
One of the things I think that is helping is that I think finally we've been getting better media coverage of the connections between the droughts and the wildfires and the severe storms and the floods and the record high temperatures.
Yeah.
And of course you can't tie any individual event to climate change, but we all know that this is part of a bigger picture. And so I think getting the information out about what is happening is the first step. But the second step is making sense of it. Why is it happening? What can we do about it? And the fact that there are fundamental justice issues involved in climate change that need to be addressed if we are going to successfully deal with the problem.
You have, I think it's you, have coined the term climate justice, which is a wonderful phrase. To me, it means that, one, we can't solve this country by country. It is planetary. I mean, the elements don't stop at national borders. The rain doesn't need a passport. But also, since I work a lot in the global women's movement, I know that there is great grief and anger in the global south that just at the point when some of these poorer countries have, got a tiny foothold on a better economy, suddenly they're told, you can't have cars, you can't have air conditioners, you can't have these things that we have had in the global north for some time, and we have over-gluttonized on, so we're in trouble. And they resent that. Is that part of what you're calling climate justice?
Yes. Climate justice, actually, it's an outgrowth of the environmental justice movement in the United States. What the environmental justice movement in the U.S. pointed out is that when you look at where toxic industries, for example, are located, it's disproportionately low-income communities, communities that are populated by people of color. Well, with climate, we see a similar phenomenon, except this time it's not just local, but it's global. That those who are disproportionately responsible for climate change, that's us, the world's high-consuming people, are essentially wreaking death and destruction on the most impoverished people. The very countries that are now looking to raise living standards because of an economic system that impoverished them are now the ones that are threatened most directly by climate change. And it's not just something in the future. It's something that's happening right now. The small island states are losing their territory. The indigenous peoples in the Arctic are having to relocate now. And yet, those are the ones with the lowest historic emissions, but they're the ones that are suffering the most. So this isn't simply an emergency at a planetary level. It also replicates the patterns of injustice that we see economically and socially, in that those who contributed least to the problem are the ones that are being hit hardest and being hit right now.
And I would add a PS to that within those already disadvantaged communities and regions, for that matter, women are hit the hardest. They're the absolute lowest rung because women are the fuel gatherers and the water haulers of the world.
Exactly. Women are the majority of the world's poor.
That's right.
And are also responsible in many cases for securing water, food, fuel, and therefore are the ones that are experiencing the greatest impact of climate change.
And in entire areas of the subcontinent, of the Asian subcontinent, the primary job for women is as garbage pickers, going through these huge, massive mountains of trash shipped from the global north, from the United States and Britain and Europe and so forth, to try to find recyclables. This is how they earn a living, but it also helps save the planet, but they're not honored for that. So what do we do, Carmen? Is it legislative? Is it what? How can we help turn this around?
It's multiple things. The first thing that we can do is push aggressively in the United States for policies, for legislation that restricts carbon emissions, imposing carbon taxes, subsidizing renewables, regulating carbon emissions. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency is actually moving in this direction. It would be best if we could have congressional action on this, and we would be able to move much, much more quickly. But the problem doesn't end in our borders. It's essential that we act first and act aggressively because we are the main contributors. If you look historically, the United States and Europe are responsible for about 80% of the problem of global warming.
Wow.
Because the emissions remain in the atmosphere, the carbon dioxide emissions, for a century.
Yeah.
It's not enough for the U.S. to act. It's not enough for Europe to act. There needs to be an agreement. And the agreement that was in place was the Kyoto Protocol. And the Kyoto Protocol, unfortunately, it was something the U.S. did not sign on to. So the U.S. did not agree to binding emission reduction obligations. But now there's a new treaty in the works, and countries have, in principle, all agreed to contribute something. The problem is that the U.S. is walking into those negotiations and insisting that everyone should have the same responsibility. But that is fundamentally unjust when the contributions to the problem are radically different,
yes,
and the resources available are radically different.
Yeah, it's false equivalency.
Unless the United States walks into those negotiations willing to take the lead, and unless the U.S. acknowledges that there has to be differentiation among countries in terms of their contributions, an agreement is not possible. And we will continue with the status quo. And the disaster is going to be upon us sooner than we think. At some point, we could cross a threshold where the effects become irreversible.
Well, as usual, you sort of stiffen my spine at the severity of the problem, but give me hope. And I don't think it's coincidental that women have always been the first and the most intense to organize on environment. I mean, in a sense, the field was invented by Rachel Carson, by a woman. But it's a frightening period. Well, unfortunately, we've got to go, but I hope you'll come back again and educate and inspire us more in the future.
Happy to do so.
Next, we have some news you can use. The National Institutes of Health, in an effort to begin addressing what is persistent and lethal gender bias in laboratory research, announced a few days ago that it will distribute $10.1 million in grants to more than 80 scientists studying a diverse array of subjects, which includes drug addiction, fetal development, migraines, which a great many women suffer from, and stroke. The researchers will use the additional funds to include more women in clinical trials and to ensure that their laboratory animals, even the cell lines that they're working with, are representative of both genders. And the money will also be used to analyze the results of gender differences in the resulting data. Dr. Janine Austin Clayton, who is the Associate Director for Women's Health Research at NIH, said that what we're after is to transform how people think about science and therefore transform how science is done. The gender bias starts at a very early stage of scientific processes. Traditionally, many investigators have worked only with male lab animals. They claim that the hormonal cycles of female animals would add variability and skew study results. They also often prefer single-sex studies because it, quote, reduces variability and makes it easier to detect the effect that you're studying. But the downside is that if there's a difference between male and female, they're not going to know about it. And also the downside is that the generic in their studies is male. With the infamous heart attack study scandal years ago, it was assumed that women were small men. We won't even comment on that. And that there really, except for reproduction, were no differences in their biology and anatomy. This year, in a commentary in the journal Nature, Dr. Francis S. Collins, who's director of the NIH, called for an end to this infamous bias and warned scientists that they have to begin testing their hypotheses in female lab animals and female tissues and female cell lines. As a result of the over-reliance on males for all of these things, Clayton said, quote, we literally know less about every aspect of female biology compared to male biology. And Dr. Palmer of the University of Chicago, who already uses both male and female mice in his research, this is research on genes that predispose animals to methamphetamine abuse, says that we know the way drug abuse plays out in humans is gender specific. If we can understand the mechanisms by which the sex differences might manifest, ultimately we may find different treatments are more effective for one sex or the other. So this is good for men and boys as well. The NIH has really been trying. They have mandated that, as I mentioned, that scientists have to test the theories on female as well as male lab animals and male tissue and female as well as male tissue and cells. Women finally now comprise half the participants in all clinical research that's funded by the NIH. That's the good news. Here's the bad news. That's only 23% of all research. So we women are still vastly underrepresented in the other 77% of research, which is done by drug companies and medical device manufacturers. So the consequences include things like women might suffer severe side effects from new treatments. For example, the FDA recently instructed women to cut doses of the sleeping pill Ambien in half because new research shows that women metabolize the active ingredient more slowly than men. So you might, in your spare moment, when you have nothing to do but protest, drop a note to any of the drug companies who make any of the drugs that you might be taking and urge them to include women in their tests and trials because, remember, that's 77% of all research has us grossly underrepresented. But the NIH, the National Institutes for Health, are really doing their part and deserve some support. Talk to your doctor about this and write some letters. It's time for one last break here at Women's Media Center Live, where I am still the same old Robin Morgan. I checked this morning, and there I was. When we return, it'll be just in time for Fighting Words.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back again, just in time for Fighting Words. Fighting Words this week is not about fighting. There seems to me that there's enough of that going on the planet right now, and we might, for a moment, pay attention to something else. The autumnal equinox, which just took place. The shift from summer officially into fall. This is an organic one. It's the time when light and darkness are actually in perfect balance in the planet, as opposed to the solstices when it's the longest day of the year or the shortest day of the year. But since I spent some time over a number of years in New Zealand and the Antipodes, where the reverse is always true, each equinox and solstice now shimmers with its opposite. When it's the winter solstice here and the longest night of the year, it's the height of summer there. When it's the autumnal equinox here, it's the spring equinox there. And the reverse, of course. In the Antipodes, where they've grown up with the same English literature we have, they have a little bit of trouble adapting. For example, rough winds really do shake the darling buds of May there because May is the fall. But this shimmer back and forth so that it's always both at the same time has never left me, the solstices and the equinoxes. So now, as I celebrate the autumnal equinox, there's the shimmer of spring. Also upcoming is the new year. Not just the secular new year in a few months, but the Jewish new year and the Wiccan new year. The older the religion, the more the new years fall in harvest time, in autumn, not at some arbitrary calendar date later on. So the Wiccan New Year, which is called Samhain, spelled Samhain, don't ask me why such a different pronunciation, but Samhain takes place on Halloween. In fact, Halloween was the adaptation of Samhain into All Hallows Eve. And it's the New Year because it's when you've taken in the harvest and you let the fields rest. It's also when I begin putting the garden to bed. Sweeping leaves. And because I do not live in the country and can't burn the leaves, they have to be schlepped out with a particular set of garbage to be recycled. Moving plants indoors, the small plants, the orchids, the herbs, the night-blooming jasmine, the succulents. And it's a time when I put out the feeders and the suets for the birds who have already returned and are clamoring for sustenance. I haven't done that yet because I haven't put the garden furniture away. And if you put out the feeders for the birds, then the birds deposit lots of little gifts on the garden furniture. So you have to do that in concert. It's also a time for putting in bulbs, mostly hyacinth, of which I can never get enough. And then, as you slowly put the garden to bed, you build the first fire of the season one evening, and nothing is as luscious as watching those flames chase each other up the fireplace, the chimney, and the hearth glowing. And maybe you make a pot of soup, chicken perhaps, or lentil, a dark, deep soup, a nourishing soup that you would have as a whole meal just with a piece of bread, which means maybe I'll make bread. The making of bread and of soup when a fire is going, the first one of the season, is deeply satisfying ritual, cozy, a drawing in of resources, and a way of letting the little beds of earth that I steward rest. So here, at least, there is a small, fragile patch of peace. I wish you a happy new year, whichever way you celebrate it. And I wish you peace. And that's it for today. Join us next week for a special show on the status of girls and girls' rights. Maya Nussbaum and Tasha Clark from Girls Right Now, that's spelled Girls Right, W-R-I-T-E, Girls Right Now. They'll be with us, followed by a roundtable discussion of the White House's My Brother's Keeper initiative and upcoming actions to raise consciousness about the imperiled lives of girls of color. The roundtable will welcome back Kimberly Crenshaw, plus Salamisha Tillett, with Christy Dotson, Joanne Smith, and Danielle Gary. Remember to visit us at WMCLive.com for the archive of all our previous episodes, and be sure to find WMC Live on Facebook, Twitter, and at iTunes worldwide, where you can stream, download, and subscribe to our show's podcast. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Views expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. WMC President and Executive Producer of this program, Julie Burton. Senior Producer, Crystal Williams Chancellor. And our founding sponsor, Regina K. Scully. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us. Make a point of putting up with one less indignity, no matter how small, in the next 7 days. And join us next week, right here, on Women's Media Center, live.
For the smartest talk about news, politics, sex, books, religion, race, and more, tune your radio to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Audacious, witty, provocative, informative, and fun. It's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on WMCLive.com. Talk radio with a brain.